Hey, welcome back. We are covering this week's newsletter per usual, which was all about relationships and polarity dynamics in relationships and how we can use those for, our own inner work and individuation. And Jen sent out another follow-up one on shadow vows, which there's a lot of that we can cover in that. So if the newsletter felt like a lot, then we'll really dig in deep today on a lot of the nuances and emphasize more insights around certain parts of these things, because it can be a lot. We'll try and keep it simple. So yeah, anything to add there, Jen, before I jump in?
No, I'm just really excited. I've just learned so much from all the writing about all these news in the newsletters about all this information, and I love it so much. I've really been working on integrating it myself, and it's just one of those tools that you need practice with. It doesn't just happen overnight. But yeah, I'm really excited about what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah, and it's a good point. It's not something that happens overnight, but I think I was really excited that we were going to get into relationships
Mhm.
with these, because we've said from the very beginning, we tell clients, we tell students, like, one of the greatest tools we have available to us every day in our lives throughout our entire life for individuation and personal growth is relationships. Relationships can be really good tools to individuate and grow. And many relationships, whether it's friendship, mentor, student, teacher, uh, siblings, roommate, all that, they can all be applied and used as a tool in the same way, but I'll mostly be referring to intimate relationships, intimate partners. And so as I'm doing that, just keep in mind that, like, this also applies with friendships and all kinds of relationships. The parent-child relationship may be completely different, but aside from that, you can apply all of these things to all relationships. Me working with couples a lot, I work with a lot of couples doing integration therapy and relationship counseling. I see a lot of these dynamics played out, and I go back in hindsight at the beginning of my relationship with Alex, and even in my first marriage. There's so much in hindsight that I see that I've gathered and I've learned, and it wasn't really until Alex and I, our two forces were just magnetized to each other, that there was this realization, or like a awakening to these polarities that we're going to talk about. And the polarities are you can say yin and yang, you can say feminine, masculine, you can say anima, animus. And I'll mostly just be talking about feminine, masculine, but when speaking in intimate partnerships, the partners that we attract or are attracted to, we tend to be attracted to partners who mirror the unconscious anima or animus within ourselves. So the anima are the feminine qualities of a man's psyche. The animus, those are the masculine qualities of a woman's psyche. And so again, we have each person, for the sake of talking about the polarities, there is a spectrum of this, and you'll see that unfold as I continue to talk about it, but it is a binary. So there's the feminine, there's the masculine, and each woman will have unconscious masculine traits. This is her animus. These are the unconscious, the masculine traits of her own soul, her own expression, archetypes that have not yet been realized or embodied. And she will project that onto a man, her partner, as her idealized masculine traits. So she may be attracted or drawn to a man who's very assertive, holds boundaries, very ambitious and motivated, because there's this the unconscious animus within her is desiring to be integrated and expressed through her in those ways, through those traits. And it doesn't make her less of a woman, but socially, culturally, we are still to this day, even through all the progressiveness, we are to this day sort of conditioned that woman acts feminine, man acts masculine. And that's not, every person has feminine and masculine qualities. And so for in psychotherapy and research around psychotherapy, they have determined there is sort of like this balancing scale. And I'll show you. So, if you are a man, you identify as the male gender, a healthy masculinity, or the masculine expression, is around 60 to 70% masculine or yang, with about a 30 to 40% balance of the yin or feminine energy traits. And conversely, for women, in a healthy femininity, a woman presenting a healthy level of feminine expression is around 60 to 70% feminine traits, with 30 to 40 balance of masculine traits. And so oftentimes it's so individual, and that's why relationships are an amazing I would say landscape for us to learn about ourselves and do these inner reflections and understand these polarities, and utilize the opportunities within these conflicts as mirrors to what is truly wanting to express and integrate and blossom. So if you have a woman who's 80-90% feminine traits, that means she's holding a lot of masculine stuff in there, a lot of masculine traits that want to be realized. She's going to project that as an idealized masculine into a partner and be drawn to a partner that embodies those traits that she has yet not integrated, or she's been suppressing those. Maybe she doesn't want to be assertive. Maybe holding boundaries in her mind is a sign of disrespect or being rude. Whatever the conditioning is, again, very individual, she will then be attracted to a man who's very masculine. Conversely, the masculine has his own unconscious feminine, and that's the anima. And he's going to project that onto a woman and be drawn to a woman who embodies his idealized feminine traits, those feminine traits that he has not yet fully integrated or realized in himself. And so, they say the unknown of one is always attracted to the known likeness in the other. So what is unknown in me will be very attracted to the known and embodied likeness of that in the other person. And so digging into that, when we look at the projection, we can use conflict as a mirror. There's the honeymoon phase of all relationships. Usually we're talking about intimate partnerships. That's the most common. But even in friendships have honeymoon phases. You're looking at all the things we have in common. I love to do this. You love to do that. I love to talk about that. Me too. I'm passionate about this. And then over time, we start to see where things will compensate, and those compensations will then become conflicts. And so I joke too, because there's constellation in all relationships where they hit certain constellations and you begin to see things shift. So the thing that attracted you to this person in the beginning that you were swooning over, and oh, that's so cute, or oh, that's so awesome, that's so intelligent, that's a brilliant aspect and part of your personality, and this is so fun. You get to a certain constellation in the relationship where those things now begin to annoy you. Mm-hmm. And when you hit that constellation where the thing that you thought was so adorable, so cute, or so admirable or inspiring, now you're getting agitated by it. That becomes the conflict mirror. That's now you've hit that constellation and you're being shown, you've had your fun now. Now it's time for you to actually awaken to why you attracted this person and were drawn to this person in the first place. And that is because the unknown in you was attracted to its own likeness in the other person. So when you were falling in love, you were actually falling in love with yourself. But, you know, we've hit a threshold. We've spent enough time with that. You now have to realize it's you are falling in love with. And that's where that suppression or the denial, and the inability to realize certain aspects of ourselves will begin to just be agitated. So I'll give an example. When Alex and I first met, um, you know, he's always been and still is carries a very healthy, like 30 to 40% feminine um, um, essence about him. He's very nurturing. He's very patient. He's really present in the moment all the time. He, doesn't get anxious. He tends to go with the flow. Those are all very feminine traits. And I was really attracted to that in the beginning because I had always been used to professors and mentors and instructors and practitioners, and even the husband I had previous to him were very rigid and structured and disciplined and just right. And Alex was very much the opposite of that, and that was so refreshing to me. Like, I didn't have to worry about whether I'm crossing a line or crossing a boundary or breaking a rule or doing this. With Alex, because he was just so in the flow and so in the moment and so nurturing and so present. And I was really attracted to that. Conversely, I was very coming out of a season of my life where I had went from feminine to, I fully integrated the masculine consciously. So I presented and embodied more masculine. And he was really attracted to that and drawn to that because most of the women he had always dated in his life, where the pattern of him kind of getting bored after a while is there was no challenge. Nothing, the women that he was in relationships never really challenged him, never really held him to account, never really had certain structures in place or wisdoms and experiences that I brought into the relationship. So those two things drew us to each other, and we were inspired by those things with each other. But then after a while, Alex, this projection I had onto him, we hit that constellation where his presence and go with the flow traits I then began to see as lazy and unmotivated and undriven. And I'm sick of this shit. Like, why can't you be worried about things? Why can't you be nervous or anxious about something? Why can't you plan something? And it started to just agitate me, because that was the moment in the relationship where the soul was like, all right, we had our fun, we had the play date, and now it's time to go back into why you are in relationship together in the first place. It's because your soul is looking for its completion, and he represented that completion, but it's none of his business. This is your business. And so when we start to get agitated with somebody, that's usually the constellation of conflict is a mirror. So we may have projected. So like the first stage is the catalyst for growth is when we project. But oftentimes when we're still lacking the realization or the awareness, we don't know we're projecting. We're just saying, I feel this thing, therefore you are. We're filling in that blank. Like, well, when you do this, I feel this, therefore you are this. And so that's when the nurturing and present, go with the flow Alex became the lazy, blah. And I was just getting annoyed because that part of me, the feminine in me, was now feeling safe, was now feeling settled in the relationship, and was ready to come out. And in order for the feminine to come out, there has to be a counterbalance or a compensation. And so I was feeling the anxiety of like, I can't allow myself to go with the flow and be present and do all these things unless he also can shift with me and be less of that so I can be more of that. That's the projection. And it's not invalid. It's a very real thing often that we can't articulate because it's unconscious, but that's what you're feeling. You're feeling yourself, you're feeling that feminine or masculine part of you, the desire to be expressed, but it doesn't feel safe to express if the other one is taking all the room, right? And that's how relationships balance each other. And so when we go from the projection as a catalyst for growth, then we move on to conflict as a mirror. And basically, there's a great book. It's called Inner Gold. I forgot the author's name, but in that he says, if another's words or behaviors have an uncomfortable impact on you, such as fear, contempt, shame, judgment, etc., that means that there's a war going on inside of you. And that's none of their business. That's your business. But projecting is when we wage our own inner war with ourselves against another person. So the war in ourself is going on, but we're waging it against another. And Marie Louise von Franz, she was a Jungian analyst, a Swiss Jungian analyst. I think she was actually friends with Carl Jung. But there's this amazing quote that says, she says, shyness is just arrogance. And what she means by that is that another person's arrogance is just your lack of confidence. So if we're shy or timid or insecure, we'll see others as arrogant or manipulative or controlling. And when we see others in that way, we've made a judgment about that, meaning I feel this, therefore you are that. And when we're assigning that label to them, we're just acknowledging or showing the polarity of what wants to come out. And so when she says shyness is just arrogance, this was many, many decades ago, so we're translating the language. She's really saying insecurity is simply just your arrogance. And when you integrate that into a conscious embodiment, it's no longer arrogance, it's just confidence. And then you no longer see people as arrogant because you've integrated that. So we go from projection as a catalyst to conflict as the mirror. So when we have conflicts and tensions in our relationship, that doesn't mean the relationship's in trouble. It just means you're trying to wage your own inner war with yourself against another person. And if we don't have the awareness and we don't acknowledge that, relationships will suffer. They're going to suffer. And a lot of people walk away when we get to that point. It's too much war, so to speak. But that war is not the other person's business. That's your business. And so then we move into the polarity and the integration of opposites. And that's the psychological compensation. So I was saying earlier that we have these, as a woman, I have these idealized masculine traits that I'm going to project onto a man if I'm looking to attract a man. He may embody those traits, but that's truly me looking to compensate what has not yet been realized within myself. And when we go further down the rabbit hole, like I said, I was more masculine, Alex was more feminine. So this is what Jung called the psychological compensation. So if I am consciously masculine with a suppressed feminine, I'm going to attract someone who is feminine presenting who then has suppressed masculine, and Alex certainly did. So he, has consciously developed his anima and has feminine qualities. So he's going to be looking for someone to compensate, to complement that. So he won't be attracted to a woman who's displaying the same amount of feminine conscious qualities. It won't work. It clashes. You're going to be magnetized to the opposite of that, and then using those opposites to then integrate your own whatever you're suppressed. So as for me, it was I suppressed the feminine. I attracted a feminine man. same thing. He suppressed the masculine and attracted a very masculine woman. So when we begin to do that, we're looking at these are the external reflections of our internal opposites and what needs to be expressed. And he suppressed his masculine because he grew up in a household, and as an immigrant from Ukraine, there's like also a lot of cultural crossovers of where to him growing up the masculine was violent and controlling and scary, and so he identified more with his mother, more nurturing, more present, more go with the flow, more supportive. And so to him, that suppression of the masculine was because he was afraid of it. He didn't, that's the father complex. And for me, the suppression of the feminine came after a certain season of my life where I felt that the overexpression of feminine is what caused me harm and what caused me many crises. So I suppressed the feminine and presented more as a consciously masculine. And but after a while, like, that feminine needs to come out. Like, you can't suppress these parts of yourselves forever. And made this chart. So
Well, or you can, and you might end up with more splits.
yes, that is a fractured.
Yeah, I wanted to let you know too. It's Robert A. Johnson, and I love him. The book that you were, Inner Gold.
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah, and he has another book where it's all about shadow work too, and it's brilliant. So if anybody
Yeah.
needs to get that,
Yeah, he's
right.
great. I thought I had it over here somewhere. No, maybe I put it back, but
Yeah,
it's a great book, and they're not like big, thick
no,
reads, not too analytical, sciencey. They're very easy, inspiring reads.
yeah,
Yeah. So these are just feminine and masculine qualities that you'll see in others. And so if I'm working with couples or even just an individual that's kind of going through these conflicts, I always look at these, in what ways are you identifying more feminine or more masculine? And again, so for a healthy male who identifies as male, a healthy expression of the masculine or the yang traits is 70-ish, 75, 80%, somewhere around there. And if you're experiencing a lot of conflict in your relationship, it may be that you have excess masculine or not enough masculine. So I always use this as like, okay, so put a check mark next to each trait if you feel like that is a good description of you. And at the bottom, you tally it up. Now, if you have excess feminine expression, you may be needy, ambiguous, confused. You might be falling into martyrdom, depression, apathy. It's just too much, surrender and submission. And it leads to this codependency where the other defines who you are, and without the other you don't know who you are. That is an excess overexpression of the feminine. Excess of the masculine would be you're forcing, you're controlling, you're very rigid. So instead of disciplined, you are rigid and dogmatic, controlling, and it can manifest as anxiety and anger. And so you want to kind of look at these, see, like, do I balance myself out? Am I balanced when I look at all of these traits? And which do I, present or express the most of? And it's just a tool, basically, that I look, just a very simple look at these two traits. Like, this is the yin, this is the yang. We all should be able to check some qualities of each one. But if you are a man in relationship with a woman and you're checking off more feminine than you are masculine, or you are in a bit too excess of the masculine, you'll begin to experience those conflicts again as the mirror. And so we want to use things like that, like these, what are the feminine traits, masculine traits. We want to use these kinds of contrasts, these lists of and contrasts to see, well, where am I, and what do I not have, what do I need more of, how can I balance this with what my partner presents and expresses. It's an easy way to gauge where you are, and simple shifts that you can make. And so you use these things as a growth opportunity to transform. It's like this alchemical, the relationship itself is like this alchemical vessel for individuation in each person. It's the container, but again, the war going on inside of you is not the other person's business, nor is it the responsibility of the relationship or the burden for the relationship to carry. That is for you. The relationship, the other person, they're just holding up the mirror. And so moving forward, we recognize the projection. We have inner dialogue. Active imagination is probably one of the most powerful exercises, I think, that out of everything that Carl Jung had left in his legacy, active imagination is so powerful. You don't need to be in deep trance or meditation or not, closed door, dark room, no interruptions when you're doing this. You can just a 10-minute active imagination to dialogue with the inner feminine or your animus or your anima. You can do this active imagination, just, like 5 to 10 minutes. That's going to take it from the recognizing projection to then having the inner dialogue. And when you have that inner dialogue, you are integrating it into from unconscious to conscious. And so then when we do that, and the more we practice that, we withdraw the projections and we begin to use the relationship as a mirror more to understand ourselves. It's a huge shift that you begin to see happening. And I think active imagination is one of those things. It's so easy and it's underused. I'll post a link here to, there's an amazing YouTube channel where this guy, he has a lot of like 5 to 10 minute active imagination guided.
Yeah.
It's not meditation. It's just, you can do this while you're in the shower, sitting in the sauna, doing whatever, and do this activity. You're just using your imagination, but that's creating a dialogue. So that's the polarities. Those are the polarities, and that's the how we use relationships to, challenge us into wholeness of ourselves. And the relationship will always evolve, whether it's your friend or whoever your intimate partner, it's going to continue to evolve. And just because you pass the honeymoon phase and the giggly phase and the I love everything about this person phase doesn't mean that it's like it's not fun anymore. No, it continues to stay fun as long as you use that relationship sort of as your mirror of understanding yourself. It's fulfillment. No matter where you are or how long you've been together, you have fulfillment, and it's a wonderful way to, again, no plant medicine, ayahuasca, MDMA, whatever, none needed. Relationships are always a really good battleground for that. Is that, yes, that's him.
Yeah, sorry, it's bad here.
What's it called? It's blurry.
Make it conscious.
Make it conscious.
Yeah, he is wonderful, and it is a good tool for people to really look at, what's kind of going on inside themselves. And he does a lot of tarot.
Yes.
He does short clips, like 10-minute videos with tarot cards.
Yeah. And they're very short. Again, you can sit, make your tea in the morning, sit down and just listen to it. And you can turn it on when you're in the shower, taking a bath, or sitting in the sauna. Any really, like, if you could put your earphones on and you're going to go out and work in the garden, you could do it in those moments. Because again, you can be completely sober, completely conscious and awake. And it's a way to have these experiences without having to stimulate some experience like this big experience. Does that make sense? I just posted about that on Instagram the other day.
No,
like, not every experience has to be
grandioso.
Not every chapter has to be a spiritual journey. Like, We came here to experience life, not escape it. And active imagination is a way to give us those experiences without actually escaping what we're here to do. And it helps us learn how to continually always integrate in our lives while experiencing life. And again, like, you don't need party drugs or ayahuasca or a circle of people and prayers and singing bowls and all. You don't. You can just be washing your dishes and have a spiritual experience. It's fact. I mean, you can sit down, play Uno with your kid, and experience it. I know a lot of people, especially in the Austin, Central Texas like area, like the conscious community, where it's like everything has to be experience. And it's that what that does. This is a total side tangent. I'm going to move on to shadow vows, I promise. But what that does is it constantly keeps your 6th, 7th chakras wide open, and it shuts down your lower chakras. You're like never in your body. You're never fully grounded, even though you think you're grounded and in your body and you're embodied. But if you're using all these like experiences like breath work and drinking teas and snorting something and dropping something and sitting in whatever, rituals are wonderful to do, but if that's what you have to do in order to have an experience, then you're not even in your body. You're not. Your soul came here to experience life. You're not experiencing it. And so huh?
You're bypassing it
Yeah.
on
But
some levels. Mm-hmm.
you've made yourself believe that it's not bypassing, you're embodying. But there's nothing about that that's embodiment, especially if you have to use these things in order to experience a thing. So anyway, that's why I love active imagination, because you are using the it's sort of the portal or the channel between spirit and your intellectual mind. You're opening that channel, and it stays open, because anytime you're thinking, the channel's closed. Every time you're imagining, the channel's open. So a lot of people have a hard time with creativity and using their imagination, and the ego gets in the way, and then that's not right, that's not real, you're making this up. That's what it is. You're imagining. That is making it up. You've just been conditioned to believe that making it up is sorcery and whatever. It's like that's what imagination is. It's taking a limited sort of contained box of thoughts and ideas and keeping it shut, having a lid on top of it, and it's very limiting. When you imagine, you open up more possibilities, more potential. And when you keep that channel open, you're using your consciousness. The ego is present, the intellectual mind is present, as well as the unconscious and the conscious and the spirit. That's why imagination and using active imagination and creative exercises is really important. Because again, you don't have to spend your money on all these things, body glitter and festivals and expensive gatherings and drugs and stuff. You just wash some dishes and open the portal. You're having a good time, you're communicating with the wooden floors beneath your feet. And
yeah, it's tough for people though. They want the stimulus.
That is escapism.
Mm-hmm.
It's 100%, it's escapism. And I'll leave it at that. So shadow vows. What are shadow vows? So again, this is using it's individuation through relational support and commitment. It's another way to utilize our relationships as the landscape for our own individuation and personal growth. So when we say shadow, we're talking about things that are unconscious that create patterns. So when these patterns emerge or get stimulated or triggered, we will feel something uncomfortable. And like I said earlier, I feel this, therefore you are that. I feel attacked, therefore you are an asshole. And when those patterns emerge, this is creating the shadow vow, is basically making a commitment in the relationship, through the relationship with the other person, to acknowledge and accept these unconscious parts of ourselves as well as the patterns, and honor our commitment to integrating and working through to disrupt and grow from these patterns that are limiting and destructive, while seeking support and thus offering the other person the invitation to say yes or no, I'm going to support this. So this is something people do bypass. Again, because like, who teaches us this? No one taught us this.
No.
When you get married, you say your vows, like in sickness and in health, and kiss the bride. It's like, what is that? What does that even mean? If this is a couple who's never gone through a financial crisis together, or faced severe illness, or death of loved ones together, pregnancy, childbirth, parenting together, they don't know what that means. They don't know what they're signing up for when they say those vows. They just say, yeah, I promise, I guess. Like, and then wait until the conflict arises, and then they decide then whether or not they want to deal with the conflict anymore. Because we are conditioned to believe that conflict is a symptom of a broken relationship. It's not. Conflict is a symptom of a war going on within ourselves. Again, it's not that person's business. And so if you want to make it their business in a way where they're not responsible for it, but they have a chance to go, I acknowledge that, I honor that, I understand what you're needing to do, and yes, what you're needing from me is this, I accept that, and I will commit to that. It's giving the other person a choice, the autonomy to go, okay, so before I go further on that, let's example of a shadow vow. We put that into I don't know if you put the long form one in there, but I'll read it. So yeah, so a shadow vow is basically you're stating a desire or a feeling that you need, and then it's feelings, needs, desires. And if the pattern is, if I don't get this, if this is a need that is unmet, this is what rises up in me. This is how I feel. This is how I react. This is how I behave. And this is how I begin to perceive you or others. So an example is, I feel loved when my need for emotional connection is being met through shared affection and intimacy. So when this need is not met, or this need is unmet, I imagine myself as unlovable. And the fear of not being loved is too painful for me to confront. And so I project this shadow onto you or others by creating a narrative that you are unloving. So the feeling unloved is projected onto you as, you're not loving me. And to protect myself, I then fall into this pattern of I withdraw, I become more stoic, maybe I give silent treatment, and I disconnect. And basically I kind of get pouty until you're like, what's the matter? So that, again, that's when you write, you're not going to write that as the shadow vow, but it's when you acknowledge that there's something you need. And if that need is not met, then you feel a certain way, which then, in order to protect yourself from actually confronting the thing you fear, you project it on the person by saying they're this thing. That's what's causing this war inside of me. She's not being lovable. She's not loving me. She's not giving me affection. She keeps saying no to intimacy. Therefore, she is this, right? She is not loving. She is not nurturing. She doesn't care about me, because it protects you from confronting the fact that what you really fear is that you are not lovable because you have not fully loved yourself. Some people, when they write their shadow vows, they don't get that far or deep into it. And it can be hard to even know what our shadows are if you've never done the work. So we start with the formula of state your feelings, desires, your need. I desire to feel this way. In order to feel this way, I need this. Either I need to experience this thing, I need to receive this thing from you, whatever. When this need is unmet, I feel this. And the shadow is anything, I think I shared earlier, it's any experience or behaviors or words from others that stimulate an uncomfortable feeling in you. And though the shadows, the most common feelings that we can narrow it down to these feelings is fear, shame, judgment, and contempt. Those are like the four most common denominator emotions that are felt when a shadow has been stimulated. So if you start to feel contempt towards another, you may want to look at like, what is it? What now you have contempt, what have you labeled them? Did you label them as manipulative, a con person, a liar, a cheat, whatever it is, you've labeled them. Contempt, when it comes up, it's like just this, it's like disgust, just like that. It's beyond anger. So maybe what's happening, that's just first, you just have to recognize it. Just, that's all you have to do is recognize in what ways do those four main emotions get stimulated in me. Judgment, fear, contempt, and shame. And shame's a big one too. And so we want to, write all those things down. Like, when are these emotions stimulated? And so when they're stimulated, and you write down these scenarios, is when this happens, or someone says that, or I'm treated like this. That means you've already. So what is it when you write that down? What is it you're needing, right? So if you feel this person like you get contempt towards this person because it's like the third time they've lied to you. It doesn't mean you can't be angry, but now you're building contempt, which is like a callousness. It's beyond anger, it's callousness towards somebody. So what need is not being met? You would say, I want to feel safe by I want to feel safe to trust another person, and in order to feel safe and trust the other person, I need that person to be honest with me. And not only, you be very specific, because not everybody lies. Everybody tells like different, 1,000 shades of lie, right? Like falsehoods, exaggerations, avoidance. What is a lie, right? And what is an acceptable lie? And if somebody lies to you, what is an acceptable way for you to rebuild that trust? So it's not always just like, I need somebody to be honest, but if they're not, I need them to be accountable. And accountability is really important. So I need honesty and I need accountability. And when those needs are not met, I feel this. I feel contempt. So again, what that need is not being met of honesty and accountability. It's really pointing you in towards the war within yourself in ways that you have not held yourself accountable, ways you've abandoned yourself, ways that you continue to lie to yourself or believe in certain illusions that are no longer fitting for you. You may not know what those are, but that's what that is, and that's for you to explore. So then you move on. You've identified the shadow. Now we got to understand what's the projection in the pattern. When I feel contempt towards you or the other, I will give you the silent treatment. I slam doors. I stomp away. I don't answer texts. I will stonewall you. I will ignore you. I will be passive aggressive. I expect you to read my mind, because if you lied, then you should know, because you're the liar. And if I'm angry, you should know already that I know you're lying. And so I'm not going to be happy with you until, so it just goes. You can keep it short. You could be very, very specific. So now you've identified the projection and the pattern. So now you have to share actionable steps you plan to take. That means in order for me to integrate this shadow aspect of myself and grow out of these destructive or limiting patterns, I vow to do the following things.
Mhm.
So if it's something around honesty and accountability, I vow to invite you to be honest with me when you see I am lying to myself. I vow to invite you to hold me accountable when I have abandoned myself or rejected myself or, suppressed my own authenticity. That's somebody who is not being accountable to themselves, and that is somebody who's lying to themselves. So, whatever ways that looks to you, whatever colors and whatever picture that paints, you vow to always invite that person to show you when you're lying to yourself, to be honest with you. I vow to listen and hold safe space even when I feel like I'm being criticized and judged. I vow to, um, hold myself accountable when I become aware of these things. And then, the second part of that is you're requesting their support. As I continue to grow, I need your support in the following ways. And whatever that is, again, it could be the same as the first one. I need you to, um, always, never hold yourself back. Don't hold back. If you see a way in which I'm not being accountable, I'm abandoning myself, I'm abandoning my truth, believing in things that no longer serve me, I need for you to mirror that to me in these ways, whatever it is. And I want you to always know that you're safe to do so, even if I revert to this pattern again of slamming a door, stomping away. I want you to know that even in that moment, it is my commitment and my vow that I will always come back to this. And the person then that you're doing the vows with can say, I accept this, or I honor the shadow in you. I recognize the shadow in you. And yes, you are right. These are the patterns. They can also help you edit and modify by saying, and as a mirror, I also noticed this pattern plays out this way too. And I also noticed that when this emotional trigger, this unmet need stimulates this, I noticed this pattern too. And I agree to support you in these following ways. And also, if you do revert back to a pattern, I share my shadow, the fear of abandonment, the fear of rejection, right? The fear of being criticized and judged may be stimulated if you stomp off and slam the door, give me the silent treatment. That may trigger this shadow in me.
Mm-hmm.
And then you go back and forth. And that's how you share your shadow vows, is you are stating your needs, feelings, desires. You identify the shadow, you identify the projection in the pattern, you share the actionable steps you're going to take, and you request the support. The person then is invited to respond. They share their vows, and same thing, and then you're invited to respond. So you're basically you're just laying it all out on the table. You're like, I know I'm cute, but I'm not always cute. So I just want you to know, like, when you choose me, you're choosing all of this too. And it gives each person autonomy so that when you hit that constellation in a relationship, you can always go back and be like, well, we knew about it. We signed up for this, and this is what's happening. This is what we said was going to happen. This is what I honored. I agreed to that. And here's the things that this person is needing from me in order to support the continued growth from this shadow. And if that shadow triggers this shadow in me, this is what we've already agreed is, we're going to do. These are the steps that we're going to take, whether it's the 15-minute rule. We just slam doors on the other side of the house or whatever, or wait 15 minutes and come back. Whatever it is, you create your own rules. These are the vows. And then we're always evolving. We're always changing. And so once we transform out of these patterns and these shadows, other ones may come up. And so it's always, I say, always a good idea if you're in relationships to, once a year, check in with your shadow vows. You got roommates, you got mentors, and, friendships and things like that. I just went through that with, I have a small group of girlfriends, and one of them basically just like, Sarah, you're spiraling. And it was just her tone. And I just went off the deep end, like so emotional. And what she stimulated was just this little 9-year old me, getting bullied by her sister. And I mean, like, she held the space for me, but also, I mean, it was just a wonderful, again, it's like we're always seeing these shadows play out. And like after the whole thing, my emotions, her response, then my response and her emotions, at the end of the day, we're like, well, we've clearly identified some unmet needs, some shadows. We see a pattern, and here's how I can support you. I'm going to support you. And for hers, it was like, we all see you as like this wise woman, and then you're a high level practitioner, and so when you say things like this XYZ, it's like, it's almost, like I want to hold you accountable to that. And it's like, and then my thing is like, I also, what I'm needing is, first of all, thank you for sharing with me that you see me this way, right? But maybe I'm the wise woman, maybe I'm a high level practitioner, but I also want to be human and still be seen the same. I also want to have faults and flaws, and reveal fractures to those who I love the most in my friend circle, and it not like disqualify me all of a sudden, right? Like, and then that really opened her heart, like, you're right, because I am the elder, like the old lady in the group, and I am seen that way, and that is the role I play, but also I do need to be soft and be fractured sometimes, and that's not always going to look like the highest level practitioner, therapist, or
Yeah.
wise woman. And
It's being vulnerable. It was
yes,
being
yeah,
vulnerable to her, and she
mhm,
accepted it. Well, she saw the pattern, she recognized that, but she
yeah,
let you be vulnerable.
yeah. So they come up, and these things will come up, and we can always reference them, and that's what shadow vows are. And that's how we can use relationships as a container of transformation. You just always start with the two polarities. There is this binary, sides that, like, it's either you're going to magnetize people into your life and in relationship with you who can compensate and help you develop what is underdeveloped or unseen within yourself. And if we approach relationships that way, then we have growth opportunity in every moment, every day of our whole lives, forever. Um, and don't need to pay for therapists. You don't have to pay for marriage counseling. You don't have to get mediators to come in with you and your friends or family and roommates or whoever. You just understand the polarities, understanding the dynamic, and remember always, I'll say it one last time, when we project the shadow, we are waging our own inner war with ourselves against someone else. And just remember, it's none of their business. That's it.
Yeah,
So
that's
that's
great.
a wrap up. Did you have anything to add?
No, that was wonderful. I feel like you really brought that full circle and gave really good examples of how it works in real life, right? Like it's all great,
Mhm.
this philosophy and the tools, but you gave the formula, and the formula is in the newsletter. So if people want to read
Mhm.
it, there's like an exercise you can go through, like you were talking about. And to sign up for our newsletter, it's free. It's in your bio. We have it linked below as well. Uh,
Mhm.
yeah, and we're here every Friday. Well,
Yeah.
we're trying
Well,
to
we
do
try to
every
be.
Friday.
Life happens, and we
Yeah.
like we like to use the feminine essence of just go with the flow, go with the flow. But either way, if we're not here, all the replays, everything. So if we're catching up something on a following day, you will always see the replays on YouTube and Rumble, and
Yeah.
there's lots of videos over there now. If you're just curious and want to dive into some things there.
And if you want to join our community, the Bodybuilding Institute, there's a free membership. So please come and sign up and meet lots of other like minded people and explore this topic plus a gazillion other ones. And there's always great support system there as well.
Yep, and you get the free Simple 7 download. It's a PDF. It's like 50 plus pages of, that we put together, the 7, elements of optimal health. And it's like, that was sort of like our gift of, when clients come and work with us or they pay to work with us, we don't want to, we don't want them paying for, us to tell them to drink water or get, it's just a big pamphlet of information and resources and links and all kinds of stuff. So you get that, and then you also have the free values course, which is really, really important too.
Yeah,
Yep. Yeah, so come on
absolutely.
over, meet us over at Bodhi Building and say hello and introduce yourself. All right, we'll see you guys next week.
Bye. Thanks.